Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Um, Kirk, I mean, you could TikTok me if you wanted, but I mean, really, the only person who's ever been able to TikTok Shives me with any degree of efficacy is Dana, and Dana will not be here tonight. She's I think going to visit family in Atlanta or some. There's some kind of Atlanta-based road trip that she's taking. I didn't get all the details, but anyway, hi everybody, welcome to the show. I just want to warn you, I was a few hours ago, I was cutting up a fallen tree with a chainsaw, so I'm feeling extra manly this evening. So if you know if some incredibly just chauvinistic and offensive thing comes out of my mouth, that's the reason. I was doing manly work in the outdoors, and I might be I might be a little aggressive. But anyway, so a black hole sum. The subject is whatever people want to talk about. Speaking of which, as always, I will be answering questions that were submitted ahead of time by my wonderful Patreon patrons and channel members first thing. So if you are with us in the live chat and you have uh, anything you want to talk with me about, or especially if you were going to be generous and drop in a super chat, which is always welcomed and encouraged, if possible, please hold on to all of that until I get through the patron and member questions, because only then will I be paying full attention to the live chat. And Kara, no, I didn't hurt myself. I didn't hurt. I even wore safety glasses, so I even had eye protection. Um, it's one of my favorite throwaway mystery science theater jokes in in Cave Dwellers, when Joel is during one of the host segments, he's showing the bots how to do foleying and how to recreate sounds with different objects, and he's showing them how to do the impact of a fist, like a punch, and he does it with meat slammers. He has two raw steaks like attached to boards, and he's just smacking them into each other and going like ugh, and they makes the meat slapping sound. And before he does that, he puts on safety goggles, and after he's done, as he's putting everything away, Tom Servo says, "Well, that's great, Joel, but why the goggles?" And Joel says, "Eye protection." And then he moves right on to the next thing. And I've been laughing about it for 30 years. So anyway, let's go now to the patron and member questions, shall we? Let me get my document queued up here. Okay, here we go. And there they are, like magic. Anyway, the first patron and member question comes from Lights, Camera, Action, Visual Effects. Steve, thanks for your thorough answer of my question last time. The importance of everyone voting every time, regardless of where one lives. You're correct. There's another particular weakness of my friend of whom I spoke, and many others who should be American voters: very short political attention span. They read internet headlines, that's it. So frustrating. My questions this time are different. If in 100 years only one of your political essays survived, which one would you hope it would be? Which one are you most proud of? My vote is your skit closing argument tour de force. Powerhouse, do you read the member and patron questions before live streams? I ask because your answers are very thorough and cogent. Now for the visual effects portion. I watch most of your presentations. Of course, I enjoy your insight and passion. During your videos, my vision is drawn to the two white stripes on either side of your beard. Have you ever thought of dyeing your entire beard snow white? As far as which of my political videos would I don't know if I can pick a single one, but I am really pleased with how all of those "if Republicans said the quiet parts loud" videos came out. I'm not sure if they would be as understood 100 years from now once they're removed from their context. Although sadly, maybe they still would be. I don't know. But yeah, I really like those. I really like how those came out. And yes, I do read the member and patron questions beforehand because um, in order to show them to everybody on the screen, like I'm doing now on that side, there you go. See all of that there. Um, I have to paste them from the Google Doc that they are submitted to, and then I drop them into a like just a Word doc on on my desktop, so I have to read them in order to transfer them to show them to you in the video. And I kind of skim them just to make sure, like, if there is a question that I might need to do a teensy weensy bit of research on, um, and I have a chance to do that, I can do that. So yes, I do read the questions ahead of time, but often it's just a quick sort of glance. And no, I've never been tempted to dye my beard, to either dye it to get rid of the gray or to dye it to make it all white. I'm going to let the beard and my hair in general take its natural course as far as its coloring. Um, the only time I've ever dyed the beard white is for a character. I've done characters in videos a few times where they've had the white, or at least a whiter beard, and I've done that just for the sake of the video. But for my actual everyday life, no, it's never even entered my head to dye my beard or my hair any particular color. Ken Kusin, hi Steve. What are the chances that Trump's fixation on acquiring both Canada and Greenland comes from the fact that that he's too stupid to understand maps? Both countries look huge on a Mercator projection, so he probably thinks that's how big they really are. What are the chances that his obsession with them is yet another form of, shall we say, compensating for something? I'm going to guess probably at least 60%. Yes, I would imagine that Donald Trump does not understand how projection maps work. And when he looks at a two-dimensional map of the world and it's a Mercator projection, which is the most common, the most commonly seen and commonly used two-dimensional map of the Earth, where because of the way it's laid out, the further you get either north or south from the equator, the more distorted the sizes of the continents get, or the features in general get. And I'm sure Trump looks at that map, at one of those maps, and sees how humongous Greenland appears to be. And he thinks, oh my God, it's as big as South America. I must have it. I don't think it's completely implausible that that is part of it. Faragrim, have you ever gone to the Star Trek TOS sets in Ticonderoga, New York? They are super cool. What bridge is your favorite? Favorite medbay and engineering? I've never been to the set tour in Ticonderoga. I would really like to go. I would really, really like to go. Maybe, and this is not a definite plan, but maybe I might be able to take a road trip up there next year. But I haven't made any concrete plans. I haven't decided whether or not, but it is definitely someplace that I would like to go. Yes. It seems pretty cool. And what bridge is my favorite? I really, really love the Enterprise A bridge from Star Trek 6. And I really love the Enterprise bridge from Strange New Worlds. Those are probably my two favorite bridges. No strong preferences as far as sickbay or engineering. I don't really have strong feelings about any of those. But the bridge, it's the Enterprise A from Star Trek 6 and the Enterprise from Strange New Worlds. Those are both beautiful sets. Debbie, hi Steve. 2 days ago I celebrated my 45th wedding anniversary. Well, congratulations. We spent the evening at home. After all those years, we decided we wanted to stay home. I can relate to that. We had a nice dinner. Then later we watched Star Trek The Voyage Home. I'm trying to learn about Star Trek, and I never cared until I started watching you on YouTube. My apologies. My husband is so happy I pay attention to your videos. Anyway, I did question him a lot during the movie and after, but it was after midnight, so our anniversary was over. He finally said to me he wanted me to get on my laptop and bother you with any more questions. So here I am. I wanted to know why Captain Kirk was not upset about getting demoted from an admiral back to a captain. That I did not get. He seemed relieved about that demotion. What did I miss? Okay, this is a really good question. And I understand why someone who is not super familiar with Star Trek might not get that, because that's something that isn't really contained within that movie. Captain Kirk's story arc or character arc in the Star Trek movies, from Star Trek 1 until the end of Star Trek 4, when he gets demoted back to captain, a lot of it has to do with the fact that he regrets being promoted. He is an admiral from Star Trek 1 through Star Trek 4, but he's not really happy about it because he doesn't care about the rank. He likes being a captain. He likes being in charge of a ship. He likes going out and exploring and you know, being a hero and being an adventurer. Like that's what he feels like he's good at. That's what he wants to do. So when he got promoted to admiral, that meant he no longer had his own ship. And I mean, obviously, the events of the Star Trek movies end up with him taking control of the Enterprise, but the Enterprise technically isn't his ship, and he's not on it all the time. He's just on it for the events of those films. So at the end of Star Trek 4, when he is rewarded for saving the world by actually getting demoted back down to captain, which is technically a punishment because he stole Starfleet property in the previous movie, et cetera, et cetera. It's technically a punishment, but everybody knows it's actually a reward because that's what Kirk really wants. So that's what that is. And again, it's paying off something that is set up in one of the earlier movies. So I understand maybe not getting it just because you just watched Star Trek 4. But yes, that's what's going on there. Kirk was relieved to no longer be an admiral because he didn't really want to be an admiral. He always wanted to be a captain, and specifically the captain of the Enterprise. And at the end of Star Trek 4, he gets his wish, and he gets to be captain of a brand new Enterprise. So there you go. Good question. Some random geek who says the Democrats as a whole party is not the opposition party right now. I'm just going to share some of the money struggles that my friend Linequin is doing or trying. Between them and their spouse, Naz the Neko, they have 4 credit cards they constantly have to make payments for. But in an attempt to get ahead of their finances, they are applying for a loan to try and kill one of the cards. The idea, I think, is that by the time they have to start paying back that loan, they're doing decently well with the Twitch streaming or getting enough donations or other income that they can finally get ahead. But yet, they've been so stressed being in survival mode that one unexpected $25 fee from one of their bank accounts or credit cards can send them into a spiral. There are days LQ was planning to stream, but bad news like that forces them to take a mental health day. While streaming is one of their few sources of income, LQ and Naz are currently struggling, and they are just 2 of several of my friends who are constantly asking for money. Please give if you can. And yes, I will throw my support behind that as well. And we'll go over the links and stuff at the end, and I'm sure Geek will have them in the chat as well for how you can support friends of ours who need a helping hand. You can always go to charitylinks.page, which is linked in the description of this video that you're watching right now. And I will remind you of it before the end of the stream. But look, I mean, I can relate to that. I'm fortunate that I'm doing pretty well financially at this point, but I get stressed out about money stuff too. So I can relate. And I have never been in a dire enough situation where I felt like I was in survival mode. But I mean, money is a constant stressor, especially if, I mean, they make money from streaming. I make money from my YouTube channel, which is kind of the same thing. It's stressful, you know, and it's something that's on my mind a lot. And I can imagine if I was in their situation, in that much debt, and with that, you know, where my income was that uncertain. I mean, it would be a constant shadow over me. So I totally relate to that of, you know, getting, it seems like it's not that big of a deal, but because it's unexpected and because you're never sure where your money's going to come from or how much you're going to have or what you're going to be able to afford, it can just throw you off, you know, whatever you were doing. I completely get that. Some random geek this time with a question. Speaking of my friend Linequin, they said, Geek, I can see you as someone who watches art films. And that is not a criticism, that is a compliment. You would be into art films. And I didn't deny it either. I pointed to 2 films, both anime films, shocker, that I consider art films that I really like, Mind Games and Belladonna of Sadness. Belladonna being an X-rated animated film, and yeah, there is sex in it. Well, I mean, X-rated, you would hope so. Granted, I haven't described a definition of art film. My question is to you, actually, sorry, it is 2 questions, really. What do you consider an art film to be? But also, what are some of your favorite art films? Do you have any recommendations to me for art films? If your favorite art films are ones you wouldn't recommend to me? Sorry, I just realized I asked 3 questions and I haven't filled up my character limit yet. What to say? Oh, well, charitylinks.page. There you go. And Bill Maher sucks. And capitalism and decay is fascism, like right now. All right. Yeah, it's so the definition of art film is very subjective. The easiest definition of an art film is a film that would be shown at an art house theater. Right? That which, could be almost anything. I mean, an art film it's a movie that is generally not made with the idea of appealing to a broad general audience. It's a movie that's not expected to gross, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. It probably was an independent film. It probably didn't cost that much to make compared to like a big studio film. Um, and for us here in the United States, we might be talking about international films, films in languages other than English, that sort of thing. So it's a pretty broad definition. I mean, and depending on how broad your definition is, my favorite film of all time might be considered an art film, because my favorite film of all time is Sherlock Jr. by Buster Keaton, which is a silent film. And at the time it was released, I don't think it would have been considered an art film. I don't know if art film was really a concept back then, because it came out in 1925 when cinema was only a few decades old. And at the time, I think it would have been just considered a popular release because Keaton was a popular star at the time. But for us now, today, in 2025, 100 years after the movie was first released, now I think it is considered an art film because it's a silent film, and it's old, and it's kind of it occupies sort of a niche position with, fans of movies. And I would always recommend Sherlock Jr. or any Buster Keaton silent film, really. But I mean, there's, like I talked about, foreign language films. I mean, there's French New Wave and Italian neorealism. Those are both movements that are associated with art films. Directors like Francois Truffaut or Pier Paolo Pasolini is another. So, I mean, my favorite Truffaut film is probably Jules and Jim, which is just a beautiful movie. My favorite Pasolini movie is probably The Gospel According to St. Matthew, which is also one of the greatest films about Jesus ever made. Another great Italian neorealist film is Bicycle Thieves, which I think we did as an episode of Late Seating a few years ago, but it's just a beautiful movie. Ikiru, which is a Japanese film, which is by Akira Kurosawa and is one of his non-samurai films. And again, one of my very, very favorite films ever. And I think, at least here in the US, in this current era, it would be considered an art film. I'm not sure how it was perceived in Japan at the time or how it's perceived in Japan now. But for us here in the States, I think it would be considered an art film. You wouldn't see it playing like at a Cineplex anywhere. So yeah, those are just some suggestions. But yeah, good question. And I agree. I think you would like art films too. Ace, who is your 16th favorite Star Trek character? Spock. Stephen G. Clenard. Hey, Steve. As you may or may not have heard, Pope Francis has died, and I've got a wild idea. I have decided to run for Pope. I understand that I enter the race as an underdog, a real dark horse, and winning would be against all odds, but I've got a feeling that the general worldwide anti-incumbent vibes gives me a real chance. Who says miracles can't happen other than atheists like me? So what do you say? Can I count on you and your channel to pump me up, spread the word, and make history? Also, would you consider lending your golden pipes to sing a version of the campaign's signature song once we figure it out? Come on, everybody. Feel the Stephen G. Clenard for Pope-mentum. Can I completely support this and think this is a wonderful idea. And we'll just play along because I've read your second question coming up later. But for the sake of the moment, for the sake of the bit, I think this is a great idea and I support you 100%. And I just want to throw in one more thing, just to kind of chew on, because it is a long shot candidacy, as you have said. If the College of Cardinals, for whatever reason, does not choose you to be the next pope, maybe consider setting yourself up as an anti-pope, because there's maybe no concept in all of organized religion that I love more than the anti-pope. It's just, I cannot tell you how much joy it brings me just to know that there are, moving through the world right now, several individuals who, in blatant defiance of the opinion of the Catholic Church, which is the organization that chooses the Pope, that they are in fact the Pope. So anyway, yeah, a good, we can always use a good anti-Pope. So consider that if the legitimate Pope job doesn't come to you. Bill, having just watched your moving tribute to your pap, I just want to say thanks once more. Keep doing what you do, everything. It's all fascinating. Take care, be well, endure. Thank you, Bill. You know, that didn't start out as a treat. He's talking about the cigarette monologue that I put up earlier this week. That didn't start out as a tribute to Pap. It kind of turned into that because it's the title of that video is Cigarette, a Random Noun Monologue. And that's literally what it was. Like I was looking for something to write about. I couldn't decide what I wanted to write about. I knew I wanted to write a video, but I didn't have anything right in front of mind that I was ready to write. So I went to one of those websites where it just generates a random word, and I asked it for a random noun, and the random noun that it gave me was cigarette, and that's what I wrote. Yeah, and I'm going to do more of those, even though that video got a paltry amount of views. I want to do more of those because I think it's an interesting concept to just give myself a random noun and just try to riff on it or come up with something and write a monologue about it. But yeah, I mean, obviously, just coincidentally, it had a personal connection to me because Pap was a smoker and Pap was an incredibly important person in my life, and still is, even though he's no longer here. But yeah, thank you. I'm glad you liked that video. I thought it came out pretty well too. Matthias, as a UK observer, I am stunned. Is there really nothing the Republicans could do that would mean GOP lose the traditionally red states and retain at minimum the use of the filibuster in the Senate? Is there really no behavior that'd mean impeachment and removal of Trump or other Republicans by GOP congressmen? And what about Thomas and Alito on SCOTUS? Is there really nothing they'd put aside their own politics to vote as judges should, neutrally, and no corruption they wouldn't engage in? I mean, all I can say is not so far. We have a case developing here that just became a news story today where apparently the FBI has arrested a judge in Wisconsin for allegedly helping an undocumented immigrant attempt to evade ICE agents. That is, I believe that is the charge that she is being charged with. So we will see what, I mean, but obviously that should be unacceptable. Like the president, or at least the FBI. I mean, actually the FBI, which in this administration, I think has to be regarded as an agent of the president. It's not supposed to be that, but I think in this administration, you have to assume that it is, just because of the way Trump thinks everything should literally be, you know, in service of him, not in service of the American people or its legally prescribed role. You know, you have to assume the FBI is an agent of Trump, and they've just arrested a judge who did something that Trump didn't like. And, you know, I mean, maybe the judge did do something that is legitimately a crime. But again, with who is in charge at the moment, why would we assume that? Why would we assume that this is a legitimate arrest given who is involved? But so we'll see how it shakes out in the next few days. But that would be, you would think, I mean, if this turns out to be what it looks like, which is the executive branch using law enforcement to punish a judge that ruled in a way that displeased the president, that you would think would be a red line, you know, for people who claim to respect the rule of law. So we'll see. But I mean, at this point, I'm not holding my breath. General Contact Unit Problem Child, do you have any hope of getting Republicans to respect stuff like trans rights? I saw an interview with the trans woman who deliberately violated Florida's bathroom laws. At one point, she said she wants to get Republicans to support trans rights. My initial reaction was to just assume she was being naive, but when she explained her thinking, I did have to admit that it makes sense as an aim given her ideology. She said she's not a revolutionary and she doesn't want to get rid of the United States. She said, given the fact the GOP are in charge of the US about half the time, we need to get them to respect trans rights and human rights in general, or those rights will only be upheld about half the time. You also don't believe in revolution. Given that, how do you think you go about ensuring human rights are respected long term? The only options I can see is either just never letting the GOP win ever again or getting them to respect human rights when they do. I'm not optimistic about either of those. Well, neither am I, but I think the first one is much more likely than the second. And I think we, as people beyond the GOP, have a lot more control over that. I personally think it is a complete waste of time to ever think you're going to change the hearts and minds of enough Trump supporters. And that's what the GOP is basically consisting of at this point, Trump supporters and people who are too cowardly to stand up to the Trump supporters. I think it's a waste of time trying to change the hearts and minds of enough of those people to make a difference. So I would rather focus on defeating them in elections and taking away their political power so that they can't inflict their backwards, bigoted, hateful beliefs on other people through force of government. That I think is and again, that's a tall order as well, given the situation we currently find ourselves in. But I think it's much more likely to actually be achievable than the other one. So yeah, I'm sorry. I think it's a waste of time. I don't think that yes, of course you can change the minds of individuals here and there. Of course it's possible to reach a person who maybe is anti-trans because of, ignorance or personal bigotry that they haven't confronted. And maybe if they met the right person and they heard the right argument and they were able to empathize and humanize with trans people, maybe that might melt the ice around their heart and they could change. Yes, of course. But is that going to happen enough times to really make a national difference? I don't think in the short term. I don't think it's going to happen in the short term. No. I mean, look at how they're 10 or 15 years ago, people thought that we had finally sort of reached some kind of permanent understanding about gay rights. And that, even if Republicans didn't personally like it or didn't personally understand it, it had become normalized enough that that everybody except for like the really just extreme fanatic bigots on the right who just hated everything that was gay, just instinctively and in a reactionary way, that it was going to at least be accepted. Like you didn't have to worry about Republicans trying to take away rights from gay people, because even if they didn't get it or they didn't like it, they accepted that it was a good and proper thing for gay people to have equal rights. And look what's happening now. Like as soon as they get enough power and enough political and cultural cachet, they start talking about not only continuing to fuck over trans people, but taking away rights from gay people as well. So you can't trust them. They're deeply prejudiced, bigoted people. And I just think it's a waste of time. I mean, you can change their minds, some of them, in the right circumstance, but I just don't think that is a viable strategy as far as like ensuring the long-term health and future of this country. I think it's it's a much more of a sure thing to just try and beat them in elections, which is what we should have been doing all along. Matthias via YouTube this time. Hi, Steve. What's your view about leveraging so-called positive discrimination to improve representation on public committees, both UK and the US, such as the BBC's oversight body, the BBC board, e.g. by part populating them using woman-only shortlists? I can see how the UK Parliament might now choose to cater for our Supreme Court's recent ruling by legislating that such women-only shortlists should not just include people born biologically female, but also include people who've legally become female. But I suspect Parliament would disagree on whether to include biological males who prefer she, he pronouns and don't intend to transition. What do you think? I mean, I think for the first part of your question, I do think diversity is a very important thing. And I think taking steps to ensure that governing bodies or oversight committees and those sorts of things have a diverse makeup is important. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think people like to call that, oh, it's reverse discrimination, it's reverse racism, and that's just horseshit. You just shouldn't even listen to those people. It's an effort being undertaken to push back against discrimination and racism and sexism and transphobia and homophobia and various other forms of inequality that already exist and are exerting influence on the culture and on whatever is being overseen by the governing body in question right now, right? So taking a step to ensure that there are, for instance, women on a governing body, so it's not all men, or to make sure that there are trans people, so it's not just cis people, or people of color, and so it's not just white people, or whatever form of, whatever the mission of the thing is, and whatever kind of diversity you can achieve, like, that's a good thing, especially in a culture where discrimination against marginalized people is the norm. um, I think I'm completely in favor of that. I'm completely in favor of that. And yes, of course they should include trans people in that. Um, it seems like in the UK that the current moment has turned against that, and trans people are experiencing a terrible setback in terms of their rights and the recognition of the validity of their identities and their personhood. But hopefully that will not last forever, just as it won't last forever here. But I mean, yes, of course, trans people should be included in the efforts to ensure representation, not just on, oversight boards and various other governing bodies, but everywhere in society. Best Stressed. Could you talk more about what the specific draw of wrestling is from your perspective? I understand that everyone knows that it's not real, but would it be fair for me to describe it as basically a form of theater, telling a story on a stage? Or does that not fully capture how you respond to it? And if not, what's that description missing? I recently watched a super eye patch wolf video on Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, and it was definitely a fun story, but it struck me that SEW didn't talk about it in quite the same way that I feel like most commentators would have talked about a non-wrestling piece of media. And I'm trying to put my finger on what's going on with wrestling. Hopefully that's coherent. I'm not quite sure what I'm asking, so I'm not sure I'm asking it clearly. I think I know what you mean. So yes, wrestling is broadly a form of theater. It is a form of narrative storytelling, and the form that storytelling takes is primarily wrestling matches where two wrestlers or two groups of wrestlers fight each other, or appear to be fighting each other, because it's not a real fight. It's what wrestling fans and people in the wrestling business call a work. There are terms that are used by people who don't know a lot about wrestling or don't really follow wrestling closely, like fake or choreographed or scripted. None of those is really accurate. So the term work is probably the best term to use. A wrestling match is worked. A wrestling angle, which is basically things that happen outside of an actual wrestling match, like when people attack each other backstage, or a promo, which is what they call an interview, when a wrestler is just talking, or two wrestlers are talking to each other, or a wrestler is being interviewed by one of the announcers or something. That's a promo, and that's another way that wrestling stories are told and wrestling plots are moved forward. But the term for what it is work. And what work basically means is everybody involved, even though they appear to be enemies, and they appear, for the sake of the show, for the sake of the drama, to be trying to hurt each other or insult each other or get under each other's skin, and in the match they're trying to beat each other to defeat the opponent. Everybody's in on it. Everybody's working together. Everybody knows what the desired result is, and everybody's kind of playing their parts in order to achieve that predetermined end. And all of that is called working in the context of wrestling. I think the element you might be missing, and what makes it different from other forms of theater, is that wrestling is very specifically patterned after sports, patterned after legitimate wrestling, patterned after what now we would recognize as mixed martial arts fighting, although that is, pro wrestling predates that by many, 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 many decades. But it's presented as a sport, and it retains a lot of qualities of sport, even though it's not a legitimate contest. Like pro wrestling is not a sport as we typically understand the term sport, because the wrestlers aren't actually having a fight. They're not actually competing with each other. They're cooperating. But there is an element of sports to it. So it's a blending of theater and of sport. And it's unique. I mean, there really aren't that many other things like wrestling. So, I mean, yes, it is a form of theater. It is a form of drama, but it's a very, very unique form of drama with a very unique and very particular and peculiar history that explains what it is and how it got to be what it is today. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the answer is you're right, but also the thing you're missing is that wrestling is very, very, very much its own thing. So it can be difficult to refer to other things and make a complete analogy, if that makes sense. But it's a really good question, and obviously I'm happy to talk about wrestling whenever you want. Jan, hey Steve, happy spring. Everything is in bloom for me, and it's lovely. At the risk of sounding fawning, I just want to say your videos this week on autism and COPD touched me deeply, as I have dear family members affected by these, and awareness is so important. As always, thank you for your work. Also, just watched a video on another channel about the Secretary of Treasury Besant and the muskrat fighting about policy and who is more important to the POTUS, and by extension, who is BFF to the dear leader. Insert the sound of ass kissing here. Hysterical. My question, it seems you usually have pizza during Trek Reluctantly. Is that correct? And what are your toppings? My fave, pepperoni, mushrooms, and artichoke hearts. That's the California way. That sounds interesting. I don't think I've ever had artichoke hearts on a pizza. Yeah, so when Dana and I do our Trek Reluctantly streams on Wednesday, that is also pizza night for us. So Dana's pizza varies depending on what she has. I think she has different things every time. Mine is almost always a margarita pizza, because I try to be vegetarian during the week, so I don't have meat toppings on my pizza. And there's, DiGiorno makes a really nice frozen margarita pizza. You pop it in the oven at 425 for 20 minutes, and it comes out just how I like it. So that's usually what I'm having on Wednesday for Trek Reluctantly. It's a DiGiorno margarita pizza. But more broadly speaking, if I'm ordering a pizza like on the weekend, when I do allow myself to eat meat, especially on Saturday, Saturday's my designated cheat day where I allow myself to eat meat. If I order a pizza on Saturday, yeah, I like pepperoni and sausage. And as far as non-meat toppings, I like jalapenos, I like mushrooms, onions, white onions or red onions, black olives. Oh, what else? I mean, I don't get all of these on the pizza every time. These are just the options that I kind of go between. I usually get maybe 2 or 3 toppings on a pizza. I don't like to get like, half a dozen toppings on a pizza. Pineapple. I do like a Hawaiian pizza. I do like ham and pineapple. Not all the time, but every once in a while. I'm definitely not against it. I think it's delicious. But I've never tried artichoke hearts. Next time I order a pizza, maybe I'll see if they have artichoke hearts. That sounds interesting. I might try that. Agent Meister, inventor of the chocolate chastity belt. That sounds delicious in the most forbidden way. Peldor Joy, Steve. I was sitting at the end of my bed after work last Tuesday, wondering where it all went wrong. When a thought suddenly struck me. Renowned connoisseur of 80s TV that you are, no doubt you remember the Mask cartoon and toy line. I have always loved and really miss the underrated little gem. It was a perfect blend of Transformers and G.I. Joe, and the cartoon was a damn sight better than both of them. That opening theme and animation alone is worth the price of admission. Did you have any of the toys? And did you have a favorite toy or character? Also, did you know that the other 7 planets in the solar system, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, can fit in the space between the Earth and the Moon with room to spare? Some wiggling around will have done for Saturn's rings will have done for Saturn's rings, though, but the theory's sound. I did know that, actually, the bit about the planets. Isn't that fascinating? It shows you how big space is and how much emptiness there is in space. That's one of the things that most popular sci-fi gets wrong, just for the sake of giving us something visually interesting to look at. Like every time you turn on like a Star Wars movie or a Star Trek movie or show, and you see an exterior and it's in outer space, everything, it's all full of stuff. There's planets and asteroids and nebula and galaxies that you can just see just hanging in space. Like there's so much beautiful visual stuff to look at, especially in modern stuff where they go crazy with special effects. And real space just doesn't look like that. Like it just, there's like stuff is not that close to each other. But yeah, so there's a lot of empty space even in our own solar system where things are relatively close together compared to outside. Yeah, you can fit all of the rest of the planets in the orbit of the Earth and the Moon. Which, if you think about it, I mean, that's, what the average distance is 250,000 miles. So that's a lot of space to play with. I do remember Mask. I was not a huge fan of Mask, probably just because I didn't have time to watch it while also watching He-Man and Transformers and G.I. Joe and all the other ones that I watched when I was a kid. And Mask just never quite made the cut. But I did watch it from time to time, and I do remember it. And yes, the opening theme, the opening credits are awesome. I don't remember if I ever had any of the toys, but it's like a genius concept, and you nailed it exactly. It's like a combination of Transformers and G.I. Joe. Like that's exactly right. So yes, I do remember Mask, but I can't tell you a whole lot more about it because it was not at the top of my my watch list when I was a kid. The Grumpy Monkey. How now, Steve? I recently tried getting into Batman comics after 20 years. There were some good stories by Scott Snyder, Sean Murphy, and PJ Tomasi, but I'm sorry to say that everything else left me cold. Good writing should at the very least be interesting enough to make me want to see what happens next, and these comics couldn't even do that. I have read and reread the Bat books from 1986 to 2006, and I miss the talents of people like Dixon, Munch, Grant, Nolan, Jones, Breyfogle, Aparo, and many more. But I miss the feeling of looking forward to the next story or issue the most. Maybe it's just me, and maybe there are only so many times I can enjoy Batman stopping the Joker or Two-Face's battle with duality, especially when it's been done before and done better. I love most of the movies, TV shows, and video games, and I just wish I could feel the same for the medium that spawned the character. I'd love to hear your thoughts, if any, on this. And is there any long-running franchise you feel the same about? Well, I mean, they all get that way from time to time. Yeah, I have always just sort of assumed that it's a result of my age, and it's just a result of the fact that I'm not that 9, 10, 11-year-old kid anymore who could pick up a random Batman comic and just be instantly drawn into it and have that experience. Because okay, I remember Toys R Us. Remember when Toys R Us existed as something other than a section at Macy's? In 1991 or 92, I think it was 92. It was after Batman Returns came out, and Batman Returns was like the big summer movie. So they just flooded the toy stores with Batman stuff. And one of the things that Toys R Us sold were these like 2-packs of Batman comics. And they were, maybe from a couple years before. They weren't like super recent, but they weren't like, old or anything either. And I bought at maybe age 11 or 12, probably age 12. I think I was 12 by that point. I bought like a 2-pack Batman comic, and I can't remember what one of them was, but one of them was an issue of Batman, the monthly Batman title, and it was a story written by, I'm pretty sure it was written by Alan Grant, and I know it was drawn by Jim Aparo, who's my favorite Batman artist, and it was a Robin story, a Tim Drake Robin story called To the Father I Never Knew. And I was a Batman comic book reader for years after that, because that story hooked me. And I was like, this is it. This is my thing. And I, I already was a Batman guy. I loved Batman, but I watched the TV show. I watched the movies. I watched the cartoons. And I had read the comics here and there over the years, but I was never like a dedicated comic reader. And that made me want to read Batman comics all the time. And for about 10 or 15 years, I did. And then I just kind of got away from it. Not because I don't remember ever reading a Batman comic and going, oh, this is so fucking terrible, I'm not going to read this anymore. It just gradually kind of ebbed out of my life. And I come back to it every now and then. And sometimes I read more recent stuff, and sometimes I like it, and sometimes I don't. But I think the thing that has kept me from like latching onto it again and going, oh, I must keep reading this, like I did back then, is just, there, I think I'm just different now. I mean, it's tempting to say they don't make him like Norm Brayfogle anymore. They don't make him like Jim Aparo anymore. They don't make him like Alan Grant anymore. And I do think all of those artists and writers are brilliant, but it's probably not true that there aren't any good artists or writers today. It's a variety of factors that has kept me from getting into it as strongly as I was in my relative youth. And I don't know if that's the case with you or not, but I suspect that's the case for me. Jim P. Hi, Steve. Hope you have a great show. Recently, we've been trying to buy a house. And it got me thinking, have you ever had to work with someone personally, either as a one-off project or as part of daily business, that was so incompetent you had no idea how they functioned? I can't believe how just out of their depth the sellers team has been, and it got me wondering. Have a great rest of your show. So the only actual proper job that I have ever held for any length of time other than making YouTube videos is, and I've told this before, and if people have watched my stuff for a while, they've heard this already, so I apologize for repeating myself, but I for 5 years, I worked maintenance at a truck stop. And pretty much everybody that I worked maintenance with were terrific. Like they, and it's not a complicated job. Like it's a minimum wage. It's, it's mostly like janitorial stuff, which is, hard work and deserves respect, way more respect than it gets by a lot of people. But it's not like highly skilled work. Like what you do need to learn things to be good at it, but you can pick it up pretty quick, on the job. And pretty much everybody that I worked with as a member of the maintenance crew were good. But there was this one guy who was one of the managers, who wasn't the top manager. The general manager of the store I worked at was this guy named Joe, and he was just the best. And I mean, worked his ass off, was the manager, was the boss of that truck stop, but worked his fucking ass off, worked longer hours than anybody, knew how to do every job, would do any job he needed to do to help people out, to fill in, to keep things running. Like he was the boss, right? But there was this one guy named Dave who was one of the assistant managers for about the first year or so that I worked there, and he was just the worst. And everybody hated him. I mean, the people who worked the cash registers at the front hated him. Also, on the maintenance staff hated him. The other managers hated him. The people who worked in the restaurant, the Subway restaurant on the other side of the truck stop, hated him. Like he was the worst. And he was a doofus, and he was a fuck up, and he was lazy, and he was just a shit. He was just a shit. And yeah, he was someone who I would routinely ask myself and often my coworkers, like, how the fuck did this guy ever get his job? Not that it's that impressive to be assistant manager of a truck stop. Like, it's not as though he's fucking chief executive of a major corporation. And even that, that's not that impressive of a job either, if you really want to get down to it, based on many of the people who have done it. But like, it's, that's who I think of. I think of Dave. I can't remember his last name, and I probably wouldn't tell you if I could, just to spare him some dignity, just as a human being. But yeah, I think of Dave, and Dave was the fucking worst. Isaiah Taylor. So Steve, what was your take on the all-female Blue Origin flight? that happened a few days ago. I thought the whole thing was cringe and a publicity stunt, not to mention an offense to actual female astronauts and women in STEM. I compared Katy Perry's reaction to space and William Shatner's back when he took his flight, and it's night and day. I think because of Shatner's connection to fictional space travel made him really appreciate his experience much more than Perry's, in the sense that Shatner was able to bridge the fantasy of space travel with the actual cold reality of it. And then there's a link that Isaiah provided us with a picture that I will show you in a second. And the picture is, Isaiah says, me in my uniform back in 2016. So let's take a look at the picture first of all. Look at that bad motherfucker right there. That's cool. What a... That's a good looking dude in a good looking Starfleet uniform. Thanks for the picture, Isaiah. And yeah, I mean, well, I think it's not just, yeah, I'm sure the Star Trek connection played some role in it for Shatner, but Shatner's reaction was thoughtful. And Shatner himself is not always shown himself to be a thoughtful person. But in that moment, it obviously deeply affected him. And he had a very strong, emotional, human reaction that, you know, shook him and changed him and gave him a new appreciation of things. And it's the sort of experience you would hope that anybody would have if they got to go to space. And apparently Katy Perry didn't really react that way. She thought it was just kind of a cool ride that she went on. And, you know, I'm the all-woman Blue Origin flight meant absolutely nothing to me. I don't think it meant anything to any women that I'm close to. I don't think anybody was all that impressed by it, except people who are just complete marks for celebrities and, you know, tech billionaires like Jeff Bezos. Most people that I know and respect the opinions of just thought is exactly what you thought, that it was a publicity stunt. It was something done to draw attention to a space tourism company. And that's what it is. And that's what that was. That was a space tourism flight. And I'm glad that the people who had that exorbitant amount of money to spend to go to space were able to do that. And I hope they had a good time. But I am not remotely impressed by it, nor do I give a shit about it. But seriously, that Star Trek uniform is pretty cool. And you look like a bad motherfucker wearing it. Ben Douglas, hi, Steve. Here's a Blue Origin again. There's been a lot of buzz about Blue Origin's latest space flight. What seems to get overlooked is the fact that behind it all are countless people who genuinely believe in a future for humanity in space and are doing their best to help build it. What would you say to those true believers who work at Blue Origin? Good luck to you. I hope that you're satisfied in your jobs, and I hope you continue to do good work. And when I talk shit about the company or about Jeff Bezos, I'm not directing that at you. If you are a hardworking scientist or engineer or manufacturer who's working on those vehicles and for that company, but Blue Origin's primary product that it is selling, these space tourism suborbital flights, those will play no role in the future of humanity in space. That's not the future of humanity in space. That's just a business. That's a tourism business. And I guess if you can afford to take the ride, it's probably pretty cool. But that's what that is. There's no lofty goal. There's no like, elevating of the human spirit going on there. It's rich people taking a ride that only they can afford to take. And how nice for them. So, I mean, if the people working for Blue Origin have their hearts set on their work for that company, helping to build a future for humanity in space, I'm afraid they are off in the wrong direction. But that doesn't mean I have anything against them. I'm sure that, most of them are very hardworking and intelligent and good people. But I mean, if you're looking to build the future of humanity in space by working for Blue Origin, I don't think that's what you're doing. Future Pope Donkulus I, bless you, my child. Just kidding. It's me, Stephen G. Clenard, taking advantage of the Patreon channel member loophole. I promise I won't make a habit of it. So I've been doing some research, and it appears that I am not actually eligible to run for Pope, mostly because I'm not Catholic, but also because my parole agreement specifically prohibits it. Say what you will about Mr. Collins's legal team, they are thorough. Anyhow, I figured it made sense to transfer that big Stephen G. Clenard for Pope Mentum energy to the 2026 midterm elections. I know it's over a year away and there is plenty we can do in the meantime, but electing as many Democrats to take back the House and Senate would help resist the terrors of Project 2025. They won't solve all our problems, but we must do what we can to stop the fascists. Sorry for the confusion. I hope you didn't spend too much time and effort producing campaign material for me. Nothing that can't be canceled. It's fine. And I agree with you, and I appreciate you, sort of redirecting your efforts, because yes, it is incredibly important that we elect more Democrats to the House and Senate in the next elections. But don't completely let go of that anti-pope thing. Just keep that in the back of your head as just as a possibility. That's all I'm saying. Don't give up on that. Joe McClory, of course they are targeting voting rights next. They know one person, one vote dooms them after the amount of damage they are doing to the American people. But between the cruel attacks on people here using the systems to become citizens, and now a bill that would make it nearly impossible for anyone without a passport to vote, or even people who take their spouses' names after marriage, I'm thinking more and more that not only do we have to protect the vote for citizens, but the franchise needs to be expanded to all of the people the government governs. Do you agree? Where would you stop? Should felons be allowed to vote? People younger than 18? Should people who are legal residents but not yet citizens? Anyone who lives and works here despite their status? Anyone who pays taxes? And why is your line where it is? Sorry about the one question in multiple parts, as I have to work and can't ask the follow-ups on stream. No, I think in general, I agree with you. I think 18 is a good age to be the cutoff, but yes, I do think felons should be allowed to vote. I am completely in favor of people not losing the franchise because they're convicted of a felony. And at the very least, if you want it to be that they can't vote while they're actually serving in prison, at the very least, they should automatically get their right to vote back when they have finished their sentence. Like, they shouldn't have to go through any kind of a process to re-register or to petition to get their right to vote back. Like, it should just be automatic. If you get sentenced to a prison term for a felony, as soon as you get out of prison, I mean, if you lose it at all, which again is a matter for debate, I'd be fine if felons just never lost their right to vote. Why shouldn't prisoners? Why shouldn't? I mean, prisoners are still subject to the law. They're still subject to the Constitution. They're still citizens of the country. Why shouldn't they be able to vote? But if you want to say it should be part of the punishment, if you're convicted of a felony, you lose your right to vote. Okay, fine, whatever. When they get out of prison, they should automatically get their right to vote back, period. They shouldn't have to do anything. It should just be back. Like, the most they should have to do is maybe update their address, which is something that you would have to do anyway, anytime you moved. You'd have to update your voter registration so that the state had your board of elections, your local board of elections had your accurate address. That's nothing more than anybody else would have to do. But no, the felons thing I think is a no-brainer. Legal residents but not yet citizens, I'd be open to that. I'd be completely open to that. Maybe have like a residency requirement, like you have to have been here for 7 years or 14 years or whatever number you want. But yeah, I'm not against the idea of expanding the franchise to people who are not citizens but have lived here for a particular period of time, or who pay taxes or whatever. I don't see a problem with that at all. And I agree with you. I think it's very important. And it's only fair. Like, if you live here permanently and you are subject to the laws of this country, you should have the right and the ability to help decide who makes the laws, to participate in our democracy. Like, I don't see why that is, a controversial statement. MW Ridra. Well, I was wrong about Trump declaring martial law on the 20th, and I promised myself I'd ask a fun question this time if that was the case. What 20th century decade would you say had the best music? Oh, good question. I say 1980s, but my spouse said 1955 to 1965. and I'm not sure our relationship can recover from this irreconcilable difference. P.S. Do you plan to do a video on this morning's arrest of Judge Hannah Dugan? Once I know a little bit more about it and I have some more coherent thoughts, I probably will do a video about it. So maybe next week. Like it just happened today and I haven't had a chance to read up on it all that much yet. But yeah, I mean, I will probably end up making a video about it at some point soon. It seems kind of important, doesn't it? I might agree with you. I might say 80s. But I might also say 70s. I think for me, it's between the 70s and the 80s. And I mean, I didn't grow up entirely. Like I came of age in the 90s. The end of my childhood and my adolescence was in the 90s. So I have a deep nostalgic affection for 90s music. But if I had to pick best music of a decade, I mean 70s and 80s. 70s, you not only have all that amazing rock and roll, there's still a lot of great country music being made in the 70s. There's fucking R&B, Motown. I mean, there's just a lot of fantastic music coming out of the 70s. And in the 80s, same thing. I mean, there's new wave, there's some amazing pop music. Country music is kind of starting to go downhill, but yeah, I don't know. I might say 80s. I might say 80s. I am an 80s baby. So yeah, I might agree with you, but I will say 55 to 65, that's a perfectly legitimate choice. That's a good choice as well. Kara, aka the Tolkien Nerd. Hi, Steve. This isn't a question. I don't have one this time. It's just a quick note to say that I'm immensely grateful that I can come to this chat and ask what might seem to be completely crazy questions. I always appreciate the fact that you treat all my questions with serious and thoughtful responses. I'm aware that I can be a bit much. Even my husband can attest to this. Perhaps even especially. I'm just teasing. So I'm extraordinarily glad for this space to be able to be myself. Anyway, as I said, I don't have a question this time, just a quick note to say thank you. Regards, Kara. Well, I am glad that you feel welcome here. And you are welcome here. And yeah, and honestly, I mean, you always ask really interesting questions. It's not even a matter of I have to remember to treat Kara's questions with respect. You know, like you ask good questions. So it makes it easy. But yes, I thank you for saying all of that. I really appreciate it. And you are very welcome. See Mac, who might have to leave the chat early tonight. Ooh, hot date. Greetings, Steve. It's probably something like really serious, and I'm such an asshole. Oh, what's that? You got a hot date? Greetings, Steve. I hope you're doing well. Once again, I got out on the 19th. It was, as always, invigorating. But as a Boston native, living and marching in Philadelphia in front of Independence Hall on the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Lexington and Concord, it felt strangely like home. Maybe an odd question, but apart from D.C., if you had the opportunity to march and have it get attention anywhere in the country, no cost or time to travel to consider, where would you march and why? For purposes of this question, you need to pretend you can stand being around crowds or people generally. I mean, Philly's a pretty good choice. Like Philly, in terms of like what it represents in the history of the country and the whole, you know, the birthplace of liberty narrative, even though, I mean, a lot of that is just a narrative, but there's truth to it as well. Yeah, I mean, Philly's a big one. So is Boston. Like you've got them both covered. Boston would be a great place too. San Francisco, Chicago. I'm pretty much just naming major American cities that I would like to visit. But in terms of like having it be a protest and having it stand for something and have like a symbolic resonance and also, you know, potentially get a lot of attention, Philadelphia is a pretty good choice. And it's not, and I mean, you said no consideration of cost or travel time, but I mean, Philly's not that far away either. Maggie Sermonara. Hi, Steve. I hope that you are well. I want to say that I realize a lot of time has elapsed, but my deepest sympathies on the loss of your pap. Well, thank you very much. Yes, it has been over 20 years, but like I said in that video, I mean, the absence is still felt, even though it's not, I'm long past mourning, You know, I mean, it still feels like he should be here, and I think it'll always feel that way. So thank you very much for saying that. I left a comment about my mom's passing on your post with my condolences to you. Thank you very much. Today I have a three-part question for you. I love the lessons of the Civil War. Have read some, have visited battlefields, Petersburg, Monocacy, which is near me, and I've spent some time at Gettysburg. Field trips with the kiddo, but also alone. Have an affinity for General Joshua Chamberlain and Little Round Top. I believe he was Colonel Chamberlain at the time of Gettysburg. Have never explored Antietam, but was noodling around in Sharpsburg recently, my old stomping grounds. My question, the first three places to go and why? Bet you didn't know you did a travel show too. Yeah, so I mean, there are a couple of spots at Antietam that you might want to make sure that you hit. I mean, the nice thing about Antietam is that it's just big enough. Like it's a big area, it's a big park, there's a lot to see and a lot to do, but it's not so huge and there like you can hit the major points of interest in a single day. Like you don't need to schedule multiple visits or like, you know, make an entire weekend of it or whatever. I mean, you can. There's enough to do. Like if you're a Civil War fanatic and or you just like going for hikes because there's amazing hiking trails at Antietam. That's probably my favorite part of it. But in terms of Civil War stuff, the Lookout Tower at Bloody Lane is probably a good place to start. Obviously, Bloody Lane, one of the more famous and well-remembered locations of the battle, and there's a stone lookout tower that was constructed obviously after the battle, that is right at one end of Bloody Lane, and you can go up there and not only see the immediate area and kind of get a view of the geography of the sunken road or Bloody Lane. You can also get a nice sort of, you know, 360 view of the entire park and look at other places, you know, that you might want to go and check out. That's a good place to start. On the other side of the battlefield from where Bloody Lane and the Visitor Center are, there's a Burnside Bridge, which again, very important location of the battle. There are a couple of cemeteries that are nice. There's the big cemetery up on the hill, which is the Antietam National Cemetery. And that's a nice place to visit, very quiet, very solemn and contemplative, and rows and rows and rows of simple white headstones. Only Union dead, which is nice. And a nice big statue in the middle of a Union soldier, big marble statue, which is very impressive. And then there's also a much smaller cemetery back on the half of the battlefield where Bloody Lane is. Actually, not too far from Bloody Lane. There's a much smaller family cemetery that's still there and has been preserved called the Muma Cemetery that was maintained, you know, before it became a park, before it became a national park, was created and maintained by the Muma family, who were one of the families that lived on that land at the time the battle took place. And the Muma farmhouse is still there, and there's a small graveyard off to the side of the farmhouse that you can walk through. And yeah, it's just there are a lot of really nice, quiet places to go and kind of drink in the history and reflect. There are some amazing hiking trails over by the by Burnside Bridge. There's a hiking trail that goes for a stretch right along Antietam Creek, which is just beautiful, especially in the fall. And then it turns and goes up into the woods for a bit, and then it kind of branches off in different directions, and you can go on different walks. But it's a really, really beautiful place. If you ever get the chance, if you ever feel like going to Antietam and, you know, making a day of it, there's a whole bunch of stuff to do. Whether you just want to go out and be in nature and enjoy being outside and going for a walk, or whether you want to, you know, visit some history and some Civil War sites of importance. It's a really, really cool place. So I would encourage you to go check it out. Brian Baker, Steve, is entropy increasing, or are chaos and decay byproducts of living? Is there a difference? Aren't those the same thing? As Homer Simpson said, the second one, xylophone. I mean, I'm going to say entropy is increasing because isn't that what the scientists say? I'm going to go with what the scientists say. It's a good question. Russell, hey, Steve. First simple question. Is the hangout this Sunday? Yes, it is. On to my real questions. One, a response to your conspiracy theory video. Side note, always enjoy watching your Star Trek reviews. I think I wanted to add, are these creatures any different from the Borg and their Borg queen? And finally, Worf and Alexander. Yes, both are fictional, and your rebuttal was, I like Worf. One, Alexander was raised for the first 4 years by his mom, who rejected Klingon traditions, then lived with his adopted grandparents. When we see Alexander back on the Enterprise, his father finds excuses not to hang out with him, such as Fistful of Datas. Do you really blame him? Do you really blame him? How about Connor from Angel? How many fans hate his character too? I know you like Connor, so what separates the two? See you shortly. Take care. Oh, can't wait to see Stuffy too. Stuffy is close. Soon you will be with him. The difference is I like Connor. I think Connor is an interesting character, and I think Alexander is an annoying little shit. And yeah, my rebuttal is I still like Worf. Okay, Alexander was raised by his mom for 4 years, and then his father rejected him and sent him. Okay, I still like Worf. I think Worf is fully justified at being a shitty dad. I'm not saying he wasn't a shitty dad. I'm totally willing to acknowledge that Worf is a shitty dad, an absentee father. And I get Alexander has every right to feel everything he feels about Worf, because from his perspective, Worf is a shitty dad. But I'm still on Worf's side. That's my position. I'm not excusing anything Worf did as a father. I'm saying I like Worf and I'm still on his side. Andy Lawler thinks it's a damn shame SCOTUS rulings are being completely ignored, but at least Gazans are still being massacred, right? Am I right? Hey, Steve. Whoo, made it in just under the wire. You've made your lifelong love of baseball and seething hatred of gridiron football quite clear. Are there other sports you enjoy? Basketball, hockey, lacrosse, indoor soccer, actual soccer, curling, other mainstream or niche sports. Thanks and have a great weekend, everybody. Yeah, I mean, there aren't any sports that I have had the long history that I have with baseball. There aren't any other sports that I think I've ever really loved as much as I've loved baseball. But I like basketball. I can watch a basketball game and have a really good time. When I was a kid and a teenager, I got into tennis for a while. And I could probably still watch tennis. I haven't watched tennis for a very long time, but I could probably, sit down and watch a tennis match and have a good time. And the Olympics, Winter Olympics or Summer Olympics, whenever there's an Olympics on, like no matter what it is, if I have time to watch it, I'll sit down and just watch the Olympics. It's the only thing that can make me give half a shit about snowboarding or skiing or swimming. It's amazing how riveting swimming competitions are to me when they're within the context of the Olympics. I'll tell you what I discovered this last time, these most recent summer games. They did, I think this was the first year they did it, at least as a in medal competition, 3-on-3 basketball. Holy shit, was that exciting. I really, really got into the 3-on-3 basketball competition. So yes, there are other sports that I enjoy. Not as much as I enjoy baseball or the fake sport of professional wrestling. But yes, there are other sports that I enjoy. And finally, last question from the Merry Musical Man. So what are your thoughts on musicals? Any favorites? Any ones you actually loathe? I like most musicals and recently got into one about the Odyssey called Epic. One I really dislike is Rent, as it just seems super depressing. Thoughts? Well, I've never seen Rent, so I can't comment on that. And I've never seen Epic, so I can't comment on that. Generally speaking, I don't like musicals. Musicals as a genre, are not my favorite. And the ones I do tend to like are the exceptions to that rule. When I was married, my ex-wife really loved The Music Man. And so because she loved it and because it was like a thing in her family, like to watch The Music Man, and they could all like, quote it by heart and stuff. And so I watched it a lot while she and I were together, and eventually it won me over, and I got to like it. And so I would say The Music Man is one of my favorites just because, it kind of won me over. Like I watched it enough times and I thought, you know what, this is all right. Robert Preston is pretty good, right? I like Hamilton. I'm a middle-aged white man. I think I have to like Hamilton. I'm a middle-aged liberal white man. I think I have to like Hamilton. I've never seen it live. I've never seen a stage performance of it, but I listened to the original cast recording back maybe it was while the original cast was still on Broadway. So it was maybe within the first year of it, like hitting Broadway and becoming like the biggest thing in the world. I listened to the original cast recording of it just out of curiosity because it had become such a cultural thing. And just, I mean, by the end of it, I was crying. Like by the end of it, I was weeping. It really got me. And then of course, when they put the recorded version on Disney Plus, I watched that and thought it was fantastic. Just thought it was brilliant. So that's one. I tend to enjoy funny musicals, like, musicals that are satires of musicals, that are spoofs of musicals. Like the musical version of The Producers, or the Book of Mormon, or the first South Park movie, which is a musical and is very funny. So yeah, that kind of, as far as musicals that I loathe, loathe is a strong word. I don't like to say that I loathe or that I hate a movie or like a piece of art unless there's something morally reprehensible about it. But I really, 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 really don't like Les Mis. Now, I will give you this caveat. The only version of Les Mis I've ever actually seen is the movie with Russell Crowe and Hugh Jackman and Anne Hathaway. But I am given to understand that the songs are all the same in all the other versions. I did not enjoy Les Mis at all. I did not enjoy Les Mis at all. But yeah, so yeah, I generally don't like musicals, but there are a few that I have liked, and those are the ones I talked about. So that's it for the patron questions and the member questions. Thank you all so much for being patrons and members. I'm going to turn my attention for the rest of the show to the live chat in a moment, but first, as Russell alluded to in his question, before I turn to the live chat, it's that wonderful time of an Ask Away stream where I show you a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. So this is a Stuffy and Friends short that will go live as a standalone YouTube short on this channel tomorrow. But because you're watching Ask Away right now, you get to see it before anybody else does. So please take a minute or so and enjoy this brand new Stuffy and Friends short right now. If I can get it to click over. Hello, there we go. My computer is being slow, can you tell? Anyway, enjoy the Stuffy short.
Don't be afraid.
What's happening?
Remain calm. Panic will be your undoing.
What are you talking about? What's going on? Stuffy?
What's wrong?
That's what I'm asking you. What's going on?
Nothing. Everything is okay. Why? What happened?
Hans is being weird.
I need you to give me a little more.
Why are you sitting there watching me like a scary creep?
Being taken for a creep is an unfortunate byproduct of a sad misunderstanding. I am but a humble and innocent messenger.
I'm giving Hans a ride home and we're picking up dinner at Enchiladas del Fuego on the way. I sent Hans in to wake you up and ask if you wanted me to bring you back anything.
My apologies for unsettling you. I was merely trying to put you at ease as you groped your way back to consciousness.
You need to work on your technique.
Good note. Though perhaps we can all profit from a periodic reminder of the folly of leaping blindly to conclusions.
Uh-huh. Do they still have that enchiladas and tacos combo?
I'm pretty sure they do.
I'll get that. Beans, no meat, and I guess a Coke Zero to drink.
They don't have Coke, they have Pepsi. Do you want a Pepsi?
I'd rather die. Ta-da! Sorry about the delay there. So here's what's happening. About 20 minutes or so into the stream, my computer decided that it was going to download updates. So if there's a little bit of a hang up every once in a while, that's why. Now, theoretically, it's done downloading the updates and it's waiting for me to restart the computer, which I, out of courtesy to you, will not do until I finish the stream at around 8 o'clock. But that's the deal. And I guess it was a little busy when I asked it just now to play the Stuffy short. It was a little busy and it got to it when it got to it. I found it to be somewhat discourteous, but hopefully the Stuffy short played well enough and you were able to watch it and enjoy it. So, let's turn to the live chat. Yes, Wolferman Hart says Werner Herzog is a fascinating polymath. Teg, you know, he's not Werner Herzog. He just sounds like Werner Herzog. Someone dubbed him Werner Herzdog, which I think is a great description, and I wish that I had thought of it. But no, his name is Hans Krieger. That's the Werner Herzog-esque dog. That's Hans Krieger. Yeah, Mad Maggie. It was frozen because of that, because of what I said about the updates. Yeah, it was. I'm glad it woke up eventually. Okay, let's see what we got here. Don Quixote, I saw your super chat. Oh, Debbie dropped in a super chat earlier. Thank you very much. And Don Quixote says, you said you'd watch skiing. Is that mostly waiting for an agony of defeat moment, like the old Wide World of Sports intro? Not entirely. Not entirely. Some of it, sure. Yeah. I mean, some of it, but not entirely. Some of it's about, wanting to see who wins. JP Fryer said, hey, Steve, just wondering, what are your thoughts on Joe Rogan? I personally am not a fan, and I find him to be someone of a mediocre intelligence. My thoughts are very much the same as yours. I think we're very much in agreement there. Jordan Hewen says, I just wanted to say thank you for posting your content. I never realized that fascism was so pervasive in our government until Elon's salute and your video on it. You've really helped me. Well, I'm sorry for the circumstances that we all have to live in, but I'm glad I could be of use to you. 255 AD says, do you think it's possible to keep the GOP out of the White House indefinitely? I actually used to be optimistic about that, but then young men overwhelmingly backed Trump in 2024. Well, that's the problem. Yes, it's possible, but a lot of people who don't vote need to vote. And also we need to be able to, defend against the efforts to make it difficult for people to vote. We need to make sure that people stay on top of the registration. We need to, whenever we get the chance, whenever we have the political power to do so, we need to repeal all of these laws that are made to create roadblocks, to discourage people from voting, all of these voter suppression policies. Like, it's possible, but it's going to require a lot of work and a lot of constant work. Like, it's a problem that will never be fixed past tense. It's something that will have to constantly be being fixed and watched at, kept after. Kane20C says, I'm about halfway through watching Cleopatra. I imagine I might finish it sometime next week. Yes, I mean, so you're halfway through Cleopatra, or as it's usually known, an entire movie. My condolences. Here's a super chat from Brian. Thank you very much, my friend. Steve, I spent 6 days in the hospital at the beginning of April and got the bill today before insurance. Almost $750,000 for 3 surgeries and the stay. Medicine should not be for profit. I agree. And I hope getting that bill did not send you back to the hospital, although I could understand if it did. Summer Geek says, do you like the story of Les Mis as a drama? No. Oh, yes. It's the musical part. The story of Les Miserables, I have no problem with at all. In fact, there's, I've never actually read the book. I will admit to you, I've never actually read the actual, Victor Hugo novel. But there is a film version from, I think, 1935, 1936. starring Frederick March, and I can never remember his name. God damn it. Charles Lawton. Frederick March as Jean Valjean, and Charles Lawton as Inspector Javert. That is wonderful. That is a brilliant movie. And I mean the story is fine. The story is terrific. It's the musical part that I don't really enjoy. Chrissy Drucker says thanks for your votes on trans people. Thank you very much. You're very welcome. It's an important issue. It should be an important issue for everybody. Norman Buchwald, we need an informed electorate. Yeah, and again, that's kind of the problem. that's one of the challenges. CMAX says my hot date is cooking dinner with my girlfriend. So hot indeed, eh? Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't an asshole for saying it. That's the most important thing to me. Well, I hope you and your girlfriend have a lovely dinner. And I hope you don't, if you're cooking, I hope you don't fuck it up. Why am I being so mean? I love CMAC. Why am I being so mean? No, obviously, that's a great reason to leave the stream early. Have a good time cooking dinner with your girlfriend. Kirog with a super chat. My DS9 question. Since Dana is not here, I just watched the first 3 episodes of season 2 of DS9. Isn't it great to know that Vedic / Kai Wynn ends up with Ducat? Yeah, I guess, but I mean, that's not where she ends up all the way. You know what I'm saying? Like she ends up on fire. That's where she ends up. Double guitars. I have not seen Sinners yet, but I really want to see it. I've heard nothing but great things about it. And I'm very excited that it's doing so well at the box office. I think that's great. Isaiah Taylor says, have you ever watched the show Totally Spies from the early 2000s? It's like a combination of Charlie's Angels and Mission Impossible. I never watched it. I remember it. I remember it being on, but I never watched it. Oh, Esri says, hi, Steve. First time viewer here. I'm a trans woman in the UK. A lot of us are very scared about the Supreme Court ruling. And apparently there's breaking news that there's a bathroom ban coming very soon. That is terrible. That is terrible. And I'm sorry to hear that. And yeah, I think someone else some random geek said, stay safe, Esri. I will second that. Yeah. Take care. Like look after yourself as much as you can. That's a terrible situation. And like nobody should have to go through that. Kara says, there are 6 books and that Jean Valjean story is only one of them. Well, then I guess that's the only one I'm going to read. John Stewart says, do you think Gunn's Superman may be a candidate for best Superman ever one day? I mean, I haven't seen it, so I can't say. I would hope so. I mean, you don't know until you see the movie. The trailers and teasers and so forth have all been very encouraging so far, but I haven't seen the movie. So I don't know, but I hope so. And I'm really excited to see it. I'm really looking forward to it. That's going to be the first, because I really want to see the Fantastic Four as well. And they come out a week apart. And that's going to be the first time I've gone to see a new movie 2 weeks in a row at the theater for years. Like I haven't done that for, I don't even remember how long. So yes, because I'm definitely going to see both of those in the theater. Maybe not technically opening day, but opening weekend, probably that Friday. Oh, Orion Zen, this is very nice. Thank you very much. Says, first time, not a question, just to relay. Ages ago, stopped for Star Trek, stayed for everything else. Thank you for being the epitome of an ally. Please never soften your language or stances. I don't plan on it. And thank you very much. That means a lot to me when people say those kinds of things. Oh, Wolfram and Hart, your super chat a month ago didn't go through, but you were charged. So, okay, your question was about the TV series The Prisoner and its relationship to Star Trek, like the General, a computer that number 6 kills logically. Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, the old talking the computer into killing itself trope that Captain Kirk did about 15 times on Star Trek. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of. I mean, they're the same era, obviously, The Prisoner and Star Trek. Tonally, they're very different. Um, The Prisoner was a lot more surreal, and I think took itself a lot more seriously, and is generally sort of regarded a lot more seriously than Star Trek. But I mean, they're both science fiction series from the '60s, so they do deal with some similar themes from time to time. Um, Wonder says, I am an autistic adult and Superman is my special interest. Your best Superman ever playlist is a regular rewatch in this house. Love your work. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I mean, I love Superman. As far as I know, I'm not autistic. I've never thought I would. I've never thought I might be. I've never been diagnosed as such, but I love Superman. So we have that in common. Yeah, I've loved Superman since I was a little kid. Maya's Mayhem. Steve asking a trans person, what inspires you personally to produce trans content? Your perspective and videos are greatly appreciated, and we need more vocal allies. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm not trans, so I wouldn't call it trans content, but I tried to speak up in support of trans people and in support of trans people's equality and rights and fair treatment and so forth, because that's no less than I would demand for myself. I mean, I was thinking about this today because I posted about it because I posted a video about a trans related issue today, and I posted a little bit more about it on social media after that, and I was thinking about it, and I think part of it is that because of the privileges I enjoy, because I am a man, because I am white, because I am a native speaker of my country's dominant language, because I'm cis, because of all of the advantages I enjoy. I have the option, if I want to, of just fucking off and minding my own business. Like, I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to just go about my life and mind my own business. And trans people are not allowed to do that. Trans people are hassled and persecuted and disrespected just for being who they are. Like, trans people never started shit. Trans people didn't do anything. Trans people didn't pick a fight with anybody. They just want to do the same thing that I do, to just be able to go through their life and be who they are and mind their own business and live their fucking life. And if they want to be social activists, if they want to be political activists, if they want to speak out and make noise and cause trouble, that's great. But they should be doing it because they've chosen to, not because they have to defend themselves and fight for their survival and fight for the same kinds of basic rights and recognitions that people like me just have. That's not fair. That's not right. That's wrong. So I feel like the very least I can do is occasionally make YouTube videos about it and use whatever voice I might have to speak up on behalf of trans people and on behalf of other people who are marginalized and unfairly discriminated against as well. But it just so happens in this current moment in history in our countries, trans people are the ones that are attacked and vilified and scapegoated the most. So they're the ones that I find myself speaking up for more often, but yeah, that's the nub of it. They're being fucked over and mistreated, and that's wrong. Like, that's wrong, and nobody should be okay with that. Super chat from Stephen G. Clenard. Actually, 2 super chats from Stephen G. Clare. Thank you, my friend. Hey, Steve, thanks for the anti-Pope suggestion. I'll need to review this with my public defender, but it looks like PC's lawyers neglected to include foment schism in major world religion. There you see, there's your loophole. And another super chat from Stephen. Thank you very much. Also, does an anti-Pope get to wear a funny hat and lecture people about butt sex? This is the beauty of being an anti-Pope, my friend. You can do whatever you want. You can make the tenets of the church that you are the Pope of whatever you want them to be. So if you want to lecture people about butt sex and wear a funny hat, that's what you can do. When you're an anti-Pope, what that really means is you're the Pope of your own church. You're saying that Pope of the Catholic Church isn't the real Pope. I'm the real Pope. So from the perspective of the Catholic Church, you would be an anti-Pope. And, you know, you can do whatever you want. That's the great part. I should be an anti-Pope? Doesn't it sound like a great gig? I mean, the downside of it is you're basically a cult leader. But once you get over that, right? Let me find some more questions I may have missed here. 255 AD says, should autistic YouTubers be making vids debunking RFK Jr.? Been seeing a lot of that, and I'm worried it gives the impression his views are even serious enough to respond to. Yeah, I mean, that's a tough situation because you don't want to give his views legitimacy, but at the same time, I mean, he's the fucking Secretary of Health and Human Services. You know, like he's not just some rando making YouTube videos. Like if he was just some rando making YouTube videos, I would say, yeah, just ignore him. He's nobody. Fuck him. But he's a government official who now has a lot of power and is planning on using that power to do a lot of really fucked up, dangerous stuff. So, I mean, I don't think it's out of line to make an effort to respond to him. Oh, thank you, CMX. CMX says, if you ever want to go to a march in Philly, I'm almost always there, and I've got 3 people that regularly march with me. I will keep that in mind. Pixel Dragon says, how worried are you about RFK Jr.? My boys are both autistic, and I'm absolutely freaking out. My great-grandmother was in Dachau, grew up learning about the horrors, and it matches. Yes, I'm very worried about it. I'm very worried about it. The autism thing, the vaccines thing, just he's a kook. He's a crank and a kook, and that's dangerous enough on its own. But yes, I mean his beliefs about autistic people seem fucking terrifying. Like not just wrong and misinformed, but really fucked up. So yeah, I mean I'm not trying to say yes, you're completely right to be freaking out. Like, you know, try to keep a level head and remain calm. But I mean, yeah, it's incredibly worrisome for a guy like that with those completely wrong beliefs to be in charge of anything, let alone the federal government's Department of Health. Yes, Wonder, exactly. Trans rights are human rights, period. Exactly. Yannick Muller says, are there any Star Trek tropes that feel so obvious now, but you never noticed until you read about it? That's an interesting one. What's an obvious Star Trek trope that I didn't notice until I read about it? I'm going to have to think about that. I know there are a few, but they're not jumping to the front of my mind right away. George Hall says, no question. Just wanted to say, I appreciate everything you do from the Star Trek reviews through social justice. Thank you very much, my friend. Stephen G. Clenard says, asks me to be the vice anti-pope. I would be honored. I would be honored to be your vice anti-pope. Also, butt sex is okay, so obtain consent and use plenty of lube. Good advice. Always good advice. Always good advice. Isaiah asks an interesting question, which I don't know if we should test or not, just for your own safety. Will the anti-pope annihilate the Vatican when he touches it? I think that would only happen if the anti-pope touches the pope. Now, if there was an anti-Vatican and you brought the anti-Vatican somehow in contact with the Vatican, now they might annihilate each other. Yeah. But I think if Stephen becomes an anti-pope, it would only annihilate the Pope. Like the two opposites have to touch. You're welcome, Eyes Mayhem. Super chat from Kirok says, my NYPD Blue question. What are your thoughts on the end of season 4 where Simone is suspended and later reinstated and Sergeant Martens is also suspended arc? If that's the one I'm thinking of, I love that arc. Is that the one where where the cliffhanger is it looks at first like you think Andy might have shot that guy, or like that guy gets shot out on the street where Simone is, and then Andy pulls up like out of nowhere, and you're like, did Andy just shoot that guy? One of my favorite season-ending cliffhangers, like of any show ever, but especially of NYPD Blue. Yes, I really, really like that story. I really, really like that story. Yeah, Philip says, I recently learned about the Palmarian Church, which split away in 1978. The excommunicated a former anti-pope after he reconciled to Rome. Yeah, there are several sort of currently in office anti-popes. I researched this years ago when I used to do, I think a lot of my regular viewers still remember the Whirlpool, which was a parody, a satirical series I did where I played a character named Michael Worley, and he's a traditionalist Catholic commentator. And when I was coming up with stuff for that, and I was creating like his sort of little story world, I did a lot of research on like offshoot Catholic sects and anti-popes and that sort of thing. That's where I came up with like the One True Church and sort of the history of that. Coming up with that stuff and then finding ways to incorporate it into those videos was a ton of fun. But yeah, I learned a lot about anti-popes and sort of Catholic splinter groups and traditionalist Catholics and then that sort of thing when I was preparing for that and coming up with stories for that. It's wacky. It's very, very wacky. John Stewart says, what do you think about them seeking the death penalty against Luigi? Well, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that they're seeking it. I hope that they don't get it. I don't think Luigi deserves to be executed. But it doesn't surprise me that they're going for it. It would have surprised me more if they didn't. Carl, what's the question? You just said Valjean/Javert. Are you like asking whose side am I on? Well, Valjean's obviously. He's the wrongly persecuted man. Tasby 12, what is your favorite non-Star Trek series? Oh, that's a good question. Well, first of all, even though I love Star Trek and I love talking about Star Trek, and obviously, I mean, I have a bunch of Star Trek people on my dresser back there. There are lots of shows that I would say I like more than Star Trek. Again, not to disparage Star Trek at all. I love Star Trek. But favorite non-Star Trek series. I love All in the Family. I love the original Twilight Zone. I love Lucy. I love The Simpsons, at least for the first 8 or 9 years. It's hard to pick a favorite. And then, of course, there are like personal favorites that don't really have a lot of cultural impact, but are shows that I just, hold close to my heart because I remember them from when I was a kid or because I just found them and they just clicked with me for some reason. Like Perfect Strangers, which is such a bad show, but it's so much fun to watch. And Mark Lynn Baker and Bronson Pinchot have such amazing comedic chemistry. Nowhere Man, which is what made me a lifelong fan of Bruce Greenwood. But yeah, one of those, probably All in the Family. maybe. All in the Family might be the best TV show I've ever seen because it's funny, but it's also incredibly politically, relevant even today, like 50 years later, and biting and challenging of conservatism and right-wing ideologies in a way that was important in the 70s and is still important today. Stephen G. Clark says, please more Michael Worley. One of these days. I mean, Michael Worley is so much fun to write and so much fun to play. I'm sure I will do more Michael Worley at some point. I don't have a plan for it right now. I don't have a story for it right now, but I would love to do more Michael Worley at some point. Oh, Darth Eddie, this is an interesting question. Have I noticed if business at the local Chick-fil-A's have gotten better or worse since Trump came back? I mean, I don't pay super close attention, but the Chick-fil-A in the area that I am close by the most often is the one that I shot some of that video at, which is like right across from my grocery store. So I'm at least driving past it somewhat regularly. It seems as busy as it always has been. I mean, it doesn't seem to be any different. It doesn't seem busier, but it doesn't seem like they're hurting for business either. Unfortunately. Oh, you're welcome, Debbie. Of course I answered your question. MVWF Manch Vegas Wrestling Federation. Are sex scandals dead? I'm going to say no. 255 AD says, do you think it's possible to entrench rights sufficiently that the GOP can't dismantle them in 4 years? That strikes me as the most plausible strategy to not have precarious rights. I mean, if we get enough support, I suppose we could enshrine some of them constitutionally. If we could get enough support to actually pass a constitutional amendment, that would make it more difficult to just dismantle them by executive order or even typical congressional legislation. But passing a constitutional amendment is a tall order as well. Brian, Babylon 5. I like Babylon 5. I really, really like Babylon 5. I don't know if I would count it as one of my all-time favorites, but I really, really like Babylon 5. MacGyver, yes. Twin Peaks, I would say yes. Even though the second season of the original show really kind of falls off for me. First season of Twin Peaks is brilliant. I love it. And the second season is pretty good, but then like the second season resolves the mystery of the murder of Laura Palmer, which it should have done. Like that needed to be done. Like they couldn't have dragged that out forever. But then after that is resolved, they don't really replace it with anything that is as interesting as that was. So Twin Peaks after that just kind of feels like we're just hanging around with the characters for no reason, and it's like, I like these characters, but it doesn't really feel like there's a reason we're here. We're just kind of hanging out with them, and it really loses something for me. But then the revival, Twin Peaks: The Return, about what, 6 or 7 years ago, whenever it came out, I thought that was excellent. I really liked that. And boy, he David Lynched the hell out of that one. I mean, that was fucking Lynchian to the max, and I thought it was great. I will do more MacGyver videos, rest assured. Kara says, is Trump breaking the law by flouting the amendments in the Bill of Rights? I mean, he's breaking the law by doing all kinds of stuff. Kirak says, your thoughts about Trump running for a third term? It would not shock me if he tried it. I don't know if he actually will, but it wouldn't shock me if he were to try it. Let me see. There's another one here. Oh, Mike again about the sex scandal. It's a funny question since there's a sex scandal about Shannon Sharp right now. Yeah, like there's an ongoing sex scandal with a famous person right now. Club Shay Shay is closed due to sex scandal. John Stewart says Steve is waiting for Star Trek: The Life and Times of Will Riker. It's set up like the Wonder Years or Everybody Hates Chris with the voiceovers from Frakes. I like this. I like this. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, Tasby12, I didn't know this. I didn't know this. The nephew of the co-creator of Twin Peaks, would that be Mark Frost, is a pitcher in MLB and threw a new hitter in 2020. Lucas Giolito. I didn't know that. That's really cool. Well, good for him. Yeah, Wolferman Hart says the third term nonsense is to try and repeat the Stop the Steal momentum. It collected $250 million in 2 months. Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. Well, I mean, Trump has admitted in public that a lot of the things he says and does are purely just to rile up his voters. Like, he's admitted that. Now, that's not an excuse, and it's still terrible. Like, he's still an evil fuck and a fascist and everything else. But it just goes to show how brazenly disingenuous and transparent he is. Like, I mean, speaking about trans issues, like he said, I think just recently, he said, you know, the reason why I bring up trans issues is because it pisses off the base and it gets people to vote. So that's why he talks about it. Not that he really cares, just that he knows it'll piss people off, so he talks about it. And he said that about lots of other things too. Like he just says shit to piss off his voters, to make them feel threatened, to make them feel, you know, like they need to strike back against something, you know. Stephen G. Clenard says, is it too early to get out the vote for the 2026 midterms? It's never too early to get out the vote for the 2026 midterms. I mean, I guess unless it's 2024, then you shouldn't be worrying about the midterms, you know, when you have an election that year. But anytime after that, it's never too early. The Darth Eddie, I am very interested in the Virginia governor's race, believe me. And I really, really, really hope the Republican doesn't win. Of course, I always hope the Republican doesn't win. CMX says at some point the cheeseburger grease will stop providing him with energy, right? And he'll just fall over one day, right, Steve? Steve? I mean, if I believed in God, I'd be praying. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I think he can't live forever, can he? He's got to die. He's obviously in terrible health. Like, he's got to die soon, right? I sure hope so. And then I hope somehow the Pope is able to come back from the dead and exact revenge on J.D. Vance and solve that problem. Of course, then we'd have President Mike Johnson. Of course, maybe he'd be so distracted tracking his son's porn usage or having his son track his porn usage that he'd be a very ineffective president. Oh, Esri, okay. Quick lesson in our American elections, and then I'm going to start wrapping up the show because it's almost 8 o'clock for me here. Esri says, I'm from the UK, so forgive me for not knowing, but what are the midterms and why are they important? So here in the US, we call the elections that take place in the middle of a presidential term the midterms. So presidents serve a 4-year term, and the elections that happen 2 years after the last presidential election, with 2 years yet to go for until the next presidential election, we call those the midterms. And that's where every seat in the House of Representatives is up for reelection, and usually about 1/3 of the Senate seats are up for reelection, because Senate elections are staggered so that not every Senate seat is up for reelection every time. And senators have a 6-year term, and the arrangement of it is a little complicated, but the Senate elections are more staggered. So midterms are every House of Representatives seat is on the line, and about 1/3 of the United States Senate seats. Plus, obviously, also, I mean, there are state elections and local elections, and there, depending on the individual schedules of the states, their governorships could be up. State representatives, depending on how your individual state arranges its state legislature. So it's basically a non-presidential general election is the midterms. And they're very important because they determine the makeup of Congress, most importantly, for the second half of a president's term. And the hope here in the US is that the Democrats will have a very good showing in the midterms in 2026 and will at least be able to gain a majority in one of the houses of Congress. And if they can do that, then that will put a big old wrench in the works of the Trump administration, and it will make it very difficult for Trump to at least legislatively accomplish most of what he wants to accomplish after that point. So the midterms are sort of our next last best hope. So a lot of us are really hoping that the Democrats do well in the midterms. Yes, Stephen G. Clenard, get out the vote, mother pikers. I guess you're not using the potty mouth because you don't want to hurt your chances to become the anti-pope. Yeah, Isaiah. I mean, from the Earth to the Moon, it's a long. It's weird. It's like it's the closest other celestial object to us, but yet even it is so far away when you think about it. Like it's amazing. I mean, Caitlin, if they were smart, they would do more. They wouldn't drop the lip service. They would actually start fighting for trans people, and they would be explaining to everybody else why they're doing it. That's the most frustrating thing about the way trans rights are talked about in this country, and it seems like it's similar in the UK as well. But I mean, I don't know because I'm not there, but it's like people on the left or people on the Democratic side who are uncomfortable with it. They'll say like, well, but trans issues aren't popular, and they're, people, it's going to run people off. If we talk too much about trans rights, it'll run people off because they don't agree with it or they don't understand it. Well, part of your job is to educate them. Part of your job is to let them know why they should want to fight for it. Why? Because it's the right thing, because it's right, because it's fair, because it's about justice. Like, part of your job is to get people on your side, because if you're fighting for trans people, you're on the right side. So you shouldn't just give up and say, well, but I mean, yeah, I believe in it. Of course, they should be treated right, but it's just not popular. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to fight the good fight and get people on your side and persuade them and educate them. Anyway, so I'll come back to the chat in a minute. But first, I want to do my end of show wrap up. So first of all, thank you so much to everybody for watching. This has been an awesome stream. I had a really good time with you. Thank you for all the awesome questions. Thanks to those of you who threw in super chats. As always, I really, really appreciate it. Stephen, good luck in your anti-pope campaign. I'm pulling for you. And I mean, I've never been a vice anti-pope before. That'd be pretty cool if that actually happens. We'll have to work out like a line of succession. But anyway, if you did enjoy this and you enjoy the stuff I do on YouTube in general, and you'd like to support this channel with a regular financial contribution, if you can afford it, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives and becoming a patron, or you can also become a channel member by clicking the join button right here on the YouTube page. And if you become a Patreon patron or a channel member at any level of support, one of the perks that you can take advantage of if you want is you can ask questions ahead of time for these twice monthly Ask Away live streams. And those are the questions that I answer in the first part of the show. Those are patrons and members who have the opportunity to send in questions early and have chosen to do so. So if that's something you might be interested in doing, become a patron, become a member at $1 a month or higher if you can afford it and you think I'm worth it, and submit your questions ahead of time for Ask Away. Also, if you enjoy the YouTube stuff, don't forget I'm also a co-host on a couple of awesome podcasts. There is the Late Seating podcast, which is a movie review show where myself and my best friend in the whole world, Jason Harding, take a fresh look at classic films and decide whether or not they deserve whatever reputation they have, be it good or bad. Our most recent episode is our review of the endless historical epic starring Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton and Rex Harrison, among many others, Cleopatra. So if you want to hear us talk about Cleopatra in way less time than it takes to watch Cleopatra, listen to our newest episode of Late Seating. And also, I am also a cast member on the Ensign's Log, which is the Star Trek themed comedy podcast that I am on alongside Jason and also our fellow cast member Amanda Billings. The three of us play characters who exist in the Star Trek universe. Right now we're on Deep Space Nine. We're coming to the end of season 2 of Deep Space Nine as far as our adventures go. The events of the Star Trek show kind of happen in the background while we're having our own adventures in the foreground that kind of drive the narrative of the show. It's a lot of fun. It's a funny show. It's a blast to record. And hopefully it's fun for you all to listen to as well. I always have a great time with the Ensign's Log. I'm very proud that we've been able to do that show as well as we have for very long. So if you like Star Trek, if you like funny Star Trek stuff, if you like stuff that makes fun of Star Trek, check out the Ensign's Log. In all humility, as a cast member of it, I highly recommend it. All right. And also don't forget charitylinks.page, where you can help out some friends of ours who need a helping hand, who are having some trouble making the bill payments or keeping food on the table, who are in a bit of financial crisis or hardship. Our friend Some Random Geek maintains that list. It's a list of links that you can use to support people in need. And we would highly encourage you to do that if you have a few spare bucks laying around this month. It's a good place to put them. So, yeah, I believe that's it for the end of show formalities. Let me take one last look at the chat and see what some last questions are. Kara says, should people fight for change even if they lose their seat? I mean, that would be nice. I wish more people would do that, or at least would take that risk. Daryl Lett says, okay, did you know that if every subscriber to your channel donated $3 a year, you'd be a millionaire? Well, I mean, people should get on that. People should get on that. That's a really great idea. Listen, hey, everybody, if all 315 some thousand people who subscribe to me, only about 100 of which are currently watching this, but that's beside the point. If all 300 some thousand of you give me $3 a month, holy shit, I'd be a millionaire every month. And then I could use that money for the betterment of humanity. And I promise that's what I would do with it. Anyway, Tiny Toe says, hi, Steve. Hi, Tiny Toes. I'm sorry that you came in right at the end of the show, but I'm glad you could make it. Kane20C, exactly. Kane20C says, I have no idea how you covered Cleopatra in an hour and 18 minutes. Oh, wait, that's right. Nothing happens in that movie. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. For as long as it is, it's quite uneventful. Yeah, it's quite uneventful. Super chat from Kirok. Thank you very much. Says, I need to speak my thoughts on that arc since it blocked me at your hangout. If that's, oh, sure. Yes, we can talk about you mean the NYPD Blue, the Sipowicz arc, or the Simone getting suspended arc? Yeah, we can always talk about NYPD Blue, buddy. And yes, don't forget, Esri, I don't think the Ensign's Log is available on YouTube. This weekend, for those of you who are patrons and members, this Sunday at noon Eastern is my monthly hangout with patrons and members where it's me and about a dozen patrons or members on a Zoom call, and it's live streamed on YouTube, so anybody can watch it. But it's kind of first come, first serve among patrons and members as to who gets to actually be in the Zoom call with me, and we all kind of hang out and talk about whatever we want to talk about for an hour or so, and it's a lot of fun. And we do it on the last Sunday of every month, and this month that's this coming Sunday. So hopefully you can either watch or take part in that if you want, and that'll be fun too. Stephen G. Clarence says Steve can sell indulgences on my behalf. I really like this anti-pope thing. I think this is going to be good for you. And yeah, I bet if I sold indulgences for you, that would make me a millionaire too. Then I could be a twice millionaire. I could be a two-millionaire, a millionaire, a two. I'll be a millionaire twice. 255 AD says, what I meant earlier is, do you think RFK's autism views are like on the same level as claiming child abuse causes homosexuality? Everybody already knows it's hateful nonsense. I mean, it's on the same level as in terms of the logic behind it. Yeah, I mean, it's just as hateful nonsense as child abuse causing homosexuality. But I do think there's a lot of misinformation out there about autism, just like there used to be a lot more misinformation out there about homosexuality. I mean, it would be nice to think that most people would just know that it was bullshit, but that may not be the case. Oh yes, CMAC, that's right. The Ensign's log behind the scenes. Yeah, we do a video version of the Ensign's log that is just the unedited recording session. Like it's, you know, Jason for the full podcast that is released on the podcast feed, like Jason edits it and finishes it with sound effects and music, and you know, but for the for patrons, not my patrons, but patrons of the podcast, which is a separate thing. Yes, if you are a patron of the Let Me Listen family of podcasts, there is that version, that sort of raw video, you know, recording session version of the Ensign's log that is on YouTube, but only patrons can access it. So, you know, if you want to see us on YouTube and on video, consider becoming a patron of the Let Me Listen podcasts. All right, I believe that will just about do it, folks. Thank you all once again so much for being here, for the awesome questions and comments and company and camaraderie and all the other stuff. I appreciate you so much. I will see some of you on Sunday for the patrons and members hangout, and I will see you next week for a bunch of other videos about a bunch of different stuff. So until then, have a good night. Have a good weekend. Thanks once again, and take care, everybody.